Attention to detail. My dad used to say that a lot. It was kind of annoying at the time, but as I got older, it became permanently embedded in my psyche. I would meticulously scrutinize nearly everything I worked on. Well, not so much school stuff, but things I actually cared about. What does this have to do with a week on the wrist? Well, this Grand Seiko SLGH005 white birch is all about the details. People that know me are well aware of my fondness for the Japanese watch brand Grand Seiko. Yeah, I studied in Japan for a few years, and yeah, I like anime. And yes, my Japanese stinks, but that's not the whole story. Objectively speaking, you'd be hard-pressed to find a watchmaker with better finishing, more innovative in-house movements, and a more unique design language than Grand Seiko, especially in that $3,000 to $7,000 price range. But in early 2021, they released this SLGH005 or white birch with a price tag of $9,100. What comes with that slightly higher price? Well, after wearing this watch for a week, I can definitively say a whole lot. The white birch is the first standard production watch in Grand Seiko's new Evolution 9 collection. The brand says, and I quote, "The Evolution 9 style preserves the fundamentals of the Grand Seiko style, but adopts them for a new generation by setting new standards of legibility, ease of use, and beauty." Grand Seiko standards were always quite high, especially at their price point, but this new style steps it up a notch, or two, or even 10, not only in quality and design, but movement technology too. Inside the white birch, you'll find Grand Seiko's revolutionary automatic high beat caliber 9SA5 movement. It was first introduced in 2020, and let's forget the tech for now. Visually, it is stunning. Say what you want about the increased price point, but have you ever seen a movement this aesthetically pleasing for under $10,000? I haven't. The highly detailed finishing is on an entirely different level compared to a lot of their other offerings. And on the tech side of things, we get a whopping 80-hour power reserve coming from a high beat movement. 10 ticks per second and 80 hours of juice? Very impressive. The 9SA5 accomplishes this by having twin barrels that house two mainsprings and by using a new revolutionary energy efficient dual impulse escapement. Yes, revolutionary. In nearly 3 centuries, only 3 new escapements have been invented and used on a relatively large scale. The lever escapement, which you can see in almost every mechanical watch, the coaxial escapement, which is in a lot of Omega watches, and this dual impulse escapement from Grand Seiko. All this is made fully in-house by Grand Seiko themselves. And it's accurate too. It's rated at +5 to -3 seconds per day. But during my week on the wrist, it only gained about 1 second. It's really difficult to look at a Grand Seiko without noticing their uniquely designed dials. It's always my favorite part of their watches. The white birches was inspired by the white birch forest, or Shirakaba, near their mechanical watchmaking studio in the town of Shizukuishi. At first glance, it might remind you of Grand Seiko's iconic snowflake dial, but this thing is a totally different beast. The snowflake has a subtle white texture, while the white birches is a different pattern altogether. It's much more pronounced, with increased depth, even more texture and a silvery white color that plays with the light in such a special way. And the finishing, you ask? Well, this is attention to detail at its very finest. The hour markers are cut to near perfection, with grooves as deep as the Grand Canyon. The hands are mirror finished in the same fashion, with the tip of the hour hand perfectly matching the width of the hour marker's tapered ends. The applied logo, the text, all of it is just so damn crisp. All this protected by a box-shaped sapphire crystal. I've put a macro lens on a lot of watches, and this level of detail is extremely difficult to find at nearly any price point. And the attention to detail doesn't stop there. The stainless steel case gets the same treatment. We're used to a mainly high polish affair when it comes to a lot of Grand Seiko models, but with the white birch we get a lot more contrast. We go from hairline finished to Zarasu polished surfaces all throughout the case, and it is very attractive. At 40mm in diameter, it fits a wide range of wrists, and the 11.7mm of thickness is much thinner than we're used to from the brand. It also has a water resistance rating of 100 meters, which means you can do almost anything in this thing besides hardcore scuba diving. The thinness, the lowered position of the crown, and the rather broad 22mm bracelet makes this watch hug my 7.25-inch circumference wrist just right. It's a different feeling than I'm used to from most watches since the bracelet only tapers to 20mm at the clasp, but nonetheless, it's very comfortable to wear. During my week with this watch, Grand Seiko actually released a different version of the white birch, the SLGH009. It's very similar with only a few changes to the dial and the case, but instead of the Highbeat 9SA5, you get Grand Seiko's new proprietary spring drive 9RA2 movement with a 5-day power reserve. They're the same price too. I'll reserve my full thoughts on that one until I see it in person, but looks like we now have two great options if you want a white birch. So there you have it, my week on the wrist with Grand Seiko's SLGH005 white birch. I obviously love it, and looks like I'll be doing many more weeks on the wrist with it because this watch, I didn't borrow it. I bought it for myself. I couldn't resist. Attention to detail, man. I can't get it out of my head.